one reason opportunities are missed is because we're not looking for them. Therefore, we just don't expect it's going to ever come, right? So we're not actively looking for an opportunity to step up. A second reason that the opportunity is missed is because we're not ready for them, which is what we're talking about today.
Welcome to the Coaching Life Podcast. There we go. My name is Pat Martin.
This is a live show today.
We have an audience, live studio audience. The Schoonover Center, Athens, Ohio.
We just discovered these.
That's what the whole episode's going to be.
Just sound effects. Yeah, like go ahead, talk there, Pat. Like whenever you get ready to cuss or something, I'll just give you.
Right. Yeah, that'll. Well, I'll be honest, Coach.
All right, I'm done playing.
It's Monday or Tuesday, and
it's game day here on the campus of Ohio University.
Yeah, the problem that I'm talking about is Sunday was game day for some teams.
You know what's funny, Pat, is we've been recording these podcasts a week ahead.
Yeah.
And have you noticed, we'll talk about how great the Browns played, and then the week that this podcast actually airs was a Sunday when they played like trash. Yeah. Isn't that funny? Like, we should talk about how crappy they played this past week so that next week when this podcast actually airs, we'll be like, what are these guys talking about? They played great this week against whoever they're playing this week.
Right, yeah, well, hopefully that's the case because against the New England Patriots, the Browns laid an egg for sure in every aspect of the game. You know, Coach, the Cleveland Browns, I don't think were ready to play that game.
Not very many NFL. It's how do you predict an NFL game this year? Tom
point.
Brady didn't look
There's
ready
a lot of parity
this week, and they had a bye week to prepare to play against the Washington football team.
Yeah,
and they got spanked.
Yeah,
I mean spanked.
Yeah, there's a lot of parity.
It is.
I think that's the good thing about the NFL. Really, is what makes it.
Those of you guys out there that try to bet NFL games, you're constantly frustrated.
Right. Yeah.
I can't imagine being one of those, but trying to place bets on NFL games. But no, you made a great point. They weren't ready. Why'd you make that point?
Well, because I wanted to know if you were ready to have our conversation today.
I'm ready now.
You're ready
now. Yeah. You know, it's funny that you say that because the football team for the Athens High School Bulldogs in 2014 had a statement that I remember seeing them write on the marker board in the locker room. We'd go in the weight room and lift, and I'd see this written in the locker room and on the weight room board. It was just a little quote that said, "They weren't ready," and it came from I think
they as in the team that we're playing,
the opponent that we played this past week. They weren't ready. And what's funny about that is there was actually an opponent that they had played earlier in the season. And I think somebody posted or tweeted a picture of their marker board in their locker room, and it was the week leading up to the Athens game. Now, granted, this 2014 team was the team with Joe Burrow and Ryan and Adam Lerman and Zakiya Saltzman, Heath Wiseman. I mean, all these incredible athletes, and then and the offensive line was phenomenal as well that year and everything. So one of the opponents posted a picture of their marker board that said, "We ready."
Oh.
And, well, they weren't ready.
They weren't ready.
Yeah. Not very many teams were ready that year.
Not many teams. Maybe for the second half. Maybe for the running clock.
They
were ready to get out of there.
Came in, right. Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, we're going to talk today about the very important aspect of being ready. And I
always being ready, right? Staying ready.
Yes.
Just readiness.
Yeah, for anything. And it's kind of like that, how we go back and talk about, the mentality. Of course it is. It's something that happens. There's a physical aspect to it, but a lot of it's mental. Mm-hmm. And, how as athletes, as coaches, we don't spend enough time thinking about, the mental side And I think being ready is one of those things that we don't spend enough time practicing. We don't spend enough time getting better at. And there's ways to get better at it for sure.
William Shakespeare, remember him?
I don't.
Bill Shakespeare.
I wasn't around when he was alive.
No.
How?
We studied him quite a bit in high school. I know you did.
Yeah, we did.
I did. Yeah. The play Hamlet. You remember anything about Hamlet?
I mean, most of his plays had a similar theme, didn't they?
They did. Yes, they did. And in fact, this quote comes from a moment from Hamlet's life where he realized he was going to die. He was going to be killed. And the quote in William Shakespeare's Hamlet says, "The readiness is all." The readiness is all. Now, that's a really short quote. The context of that is that, if a man is ready to die, then there's no point in putting it off. He sort of accepted the inevitability of the fact that he was going to be killed.
Yeah.
And so the readiness is really all that matters. And I think in terms of an athlete and a team, this is so valuable, and I think we can get a lot out of this conversation today, because I think what that tells us is it doesn't matter how skilled you are.
No.
It doesn't matter how talented you are. It doesn't matter how confident you are. If you're not ready for the moment that you're going to get your opportunity when it comes, if you're not ready, none of those other things matter.
Yeah, and I would, as far as confidence goes, I think you gain confidence from being ready and knowing that you're ready for that opportunity that you're talking about. Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah, for sure.
When we were talking about making this our podcast topic for this week, I happened to glance and see an update from, I keep an eye on the BC Lions, which is who our buddy Nathan Rourke plays for, Ohio University graduate.
That was really cool.
And Nathan has been named the starting quarterback for this Friday's game. It's the finale.
What happened there? Is the starter injured, or are they
No, I don't believe he's injured. I think he's probably close to retirement age.
Yeah.
He's been there a long time.
Here we go.
I think his name is Mike Riley. And he's a very well-loved quarterback in the league, in the Canadian League.
Yep.
And I really think Nathan is going to become that. He's one of theirs. I mean, it's rare for them to have a Canadian quarterback in the Canadian Football League. And he's a Canadian. And you can already see people want him to do well. And I really hope and pray that he will. And here's why. One of the quotes that came out of the article about Nathan starting this Friday for the BC Lions is Nathan said this: "I was always preparing every single week as if I was going to play. Yeah. So it's comforting to know that I don't have to change anything."
Yeah.
And that's Nathan.
Man, that's tough though, isn't it?
It is.
And I think that's the challenge.
Because he's held a clipboard every game. He played the first 9 minutes, I think, in the first week. Yeah. Did well. And he played a couple. I think when Riley went down hurt at one point, I think he got in for a few plays as well.
Yeah.
But other than that, he's been standing on game day holding a clipboard.
You ever been an understudy in a play?
I can only remember a couple of plays that I've ever been in.
Yeah.
And I actually wasn't. I was actually the lead role in my senior play.
Oh,
believe
wow.
it or not. Yeah.
Listen to this.
Kiss Me Quick, I'm Double Parked.
I
remember that was the title. I don't even know who wrote it.
And this was your senior play?
I was a dentist. It was my senior play. Yeah. Celia McCoy, my favorite teacher in high school. In fact, she's the one that taught us Shakespeare.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Canterbury Tales.
That's what you were.
Yeah, we were big on Canterbury Tales. I dressed up as the squire.
Okay. I'd like to see that. You got that outfit still?
You know what? I don't. I should have a picture of that somewhere though.
That's got to surface,
and it won't.
That's going to surface along with this podcast.
Yeah, and I actually walked around school the whole day in that costume, so everyone thought that was pretty funny. But I was just going. I remember one time in the 4th grade, I was an understudy for it, and I can't really remember now what the play was or what the role was.
A long time ago.
Yeah, especially for me. But I remember thinking,
really,
yeah.
I'm never going to get a chance.
This isn't going to materialize. It's not going to be. I'm not going to need to do anything.
Oh, boy.
And one day, the role that I was being the understudy for was sick for practice, and I had to step in. Didn't do very well.
Embarrassing, wasn't it?
Wasn't ready for that. So yeah, it's it's difficult because you think, it's easy to say there's no need for this, right? Mm-hmm. There's not a need for me to even be ready because, I'm not going to get my chance. I'm not going to get my opportunity. And I think, definitely for a guy like Nathan, who he had a really rough experience, with COVID and the missed opportunities that he had. I mean, he's
had a lot of NFL workouts lined up.
Yeah.
And they just started dropping one by one in
right.
2020.
I mean, how devastating, just think about the devastation, because that's what he wanted to do. He wanted to play professional football. That's been his dream. That's where he wanted to go. And, to have that happen to him, that's very difficult. Yeah. And then to come back and to still say that, to say that, I'm preparing every week to be the starter. I think it just the word character comes to mind for me. And I think you in saying that it's not easy to be ready for things in life, you have to have a certain type of character to do it.
Yes.
Or understand that you have to have a certain type of character and grow in that character, right? I'm not saying that you're always going to have it, but you can learn. Mm-hmm. You can learn, and that's why I say we have to be intentional about thinking and prepare and practicing and figuring out ways that we can be ready in our sports and in life.
And it's a constant state of being.
Yeah,
you're using the term "be ready." And I think that's an important thing to point out here is we're not talking about, there's a difference between get ready and be ready. And what we're talking about today is being ready. When I need you to perform, if I'm talking to an athlete, when I need you to perform as your coach, I don't want you to get ready. I want you to be ready. I want to make sure. I want to make sure that is your constant state of being.
Yeah.
And when it comes, well, here's an example. I think we can use some examples for this. This is why I always will list on our lineup chart in baseball who our pitching relievers are going to be for that day.
Oh, very good.
Yeah.
Yes.
I mean, I always tell the guys the day before who's starting the next day. And then as I'm pondering who's ready, like whose arms are actually ready,
right,
who is available, I should say, and I consider the opponent and just all the different things, I'll list. There's actually a spot that I've created on the chart, the dugout chart, that says first relievers, and I will list those in chronological order of who those relievers are going to be. And then sometime before the game, either during BP, ahead of before the game, or when we're on the bus, if we're traveling, I'll sit down or I'll talk to those guys who are on that relievers list and say, listen, you're going to be first up today. And I'll give them the scenarios for what they can expect of, this is how many pitches. Maybe our starters on a pitch count if it's early in the season, right? So it's guaranteed you're going to get in. Right. I just don't know exactly when it's going to be, but you're going to be pitching today.
Sure.
Later in the season, it might not be that kind of conversation. It might be, look, you're first relief, and I'm expecting that we'll have to go to you at some point. It might be when we're up to bat and we decide to make a change in the middle of the inning, and you get a chance to get down in the bullpen and go through your whole routine and get ready. But it also might be in the middle of an inning. We just don't know. And so be ready. And that's usually the word. It's be ready.
Be ready.
And then in their mind, they're already preparing for the fact that they've got to pitch. I've looked out in the left field before, and I've seen our left fielder warming up with the center fielder kind of crouching down a little bit, and they're about 60 feet or so apart, and he's out there, just going from the set position and in between innings, just instead of just lobbing the ball or throwing it or whatever, he's actually throwing warm-up pitches out there. And that's I think those kinds of things are important. To always, realize that when this opportunity comes, I know I am ready for it. I'm not surprised by it. Mm-hmm.
Well, I think, I guess, for that's a confidence perspective. So that's, going back to me saying, I think being ready provides you confidence. That's part of where your confidence comes from. There's another aspect too of just being ready allows you to be better physically. So I think that's one reason, baseball is such a hard game. Everyone talks about how boring baseball is, right? And how sometimes you can be out in left field and never get a ball. It can be on shortstop.
Anywhere, yeah.
But if you're ready, being ready is the challenge.
Right.
Right? And a lot of times when you hear people say that baseball's boring, it's because they don't understand that challenge of being ready to make that play.
What's happening in between moments.
Which we've talked about that before. Yeah, right.
Exactly.
The in-between moments. Yeah. So I think there's all kinds of different angles to look at this aspect of being ready, of staying ready, and it can make a huge difference on the way that you perform. Mm-hmm. Anticipation, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Knowing that you're going to be involved, not only knowing that you're going to be involved or can be involved, but knowing that you can be successful when that moment comes.
That's a good word. And I think there are things that we have to do. That word there, knowing that you're ready when your opportunity comes, and then not only that, but knowing that you're going to be successful, or that you put yourself in position to be successful. That kind of readiness actually happens, I'll say, months in advance before that moment.
Absolutely.
It's not just in the moment.
Sure.
So there's a difference between being ready in the moment and preparing yourself.
That's why it's so difficult for a lot of people.
It is.
And again, not to reiterate, but to reiterate, that's why we got to practice it.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. You got to practice it. Right.
Yeah.
That situation might come up in a game. So when it does, we know our team was ready because we've practiced it,
and they know they're ready.
Or we've prepared them. We've prepared them. You may not be able to prepare for every single scenario, and you don't have time to practice for that. If you're a high school coach, it's not about that.
Nope.
But it's preparing them to be able to compete in every single scenario.
Yep. Because when you get up, there's an aspect of being prepared, being ready to hit, and when you get up to hit, I mean, think of all the different scenarios that a hitter could face from one at bat to the next.
Yeah.
Just in ball placement alone.
Right.
The first pitch might be one spot, the second pitch might be another. You can't necessarily be ready for all of those individual locations, for all those spots, but you can be ready
to react to all of those.
Yes, to react for sure.
You may not know exactly what's coming, but you're ready to react to any number of things that might be thrown.
And that's not again, that's just spots.
Sure.
Situations. Mm-hmm. Different types of pitches, different types of pitchers that you're facing, right? There's a bunch of different things that you need to be ready for. I think that's why pinch hitting is such a hard thing to do.
It is.
Yeah. Or even on maybe a smaller scale, DHing.
And I'll say, that's a good point.
Because you have to stay ready.
Yeah.
Throughout the game.
Even though you know that you're going to get those opportunities.
In
the lineup,
especially
because you're in the lineup.
If you're a DH all the time, that's one thing.
Yeah,
I think it's a little easier because
that day, you're right. You've been named DH and you weren't expecting it.
Yeah, or you just you're on and off. Sometimes you play the field and hit, and sometimes you don't.
Yeah, right.
There's it's completely different.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So it's when you go out in the field, that there's an aspect of a lot, that's preparing you, that's doing something, which we might talk about. You have a routine, so to speak, that allows you to come back off the field after an inning and be ready to do what you need to do at the plate.
I'll say from a coach's standpoint too, it's hard. This is why it's sometimes hard to choose who to pinch hit. Who to hit for somebody. When you know that you need a hitter, like this, you got a guy in the lineup that this is not his day. He's getting owned, right? And he's coming up, his spot's coming up in a big spot, in a big moment. And you got a couple of choices there. You could say, well, he's due. So I'm going to let him hit.
Yeah, I usually resort to that. Like I normally feel that way.
And you know why? You know why I think sometimes you feel that way? Because you don't have anybody on the bench that you have confidence in that could do a better job.
That's a fair point. Yeah.
And so, and I believe that if I'm keeping guys on a roster, then we should have guys that are ready to go.
Yeah.
And I think this is why people miss their opportunities. So I'm speaking as a coach now, and I'm telling you, here's why I think sometimes you miss your opportunities as a player. Opportunities are missed for two reasons. This actually applies to more than just athletics. This applies to, think about that. If you have a job and you would like to move up in your career, think about this. One reason opportunities are missed is because we're not looking for them.
Yep.
We're not looking for them. And so therefore we just don't expect it's going to ever come, right? So we're not actively looking for an opportunity to step up. A second reason that the opportunity is missed is because we're not ready for them, which is what we're talking about today.
Right.
And so if we're not looking for them, then they're just going to pass us by. They go to somebody else.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
So you're in the dugout. You're not really paying much attention to the flow of the game and how the game is going. And so you're not thinking that your coach might be needing a pinch hitter later. Here we are later in the game and the time is coming. And so what are you doing? You're sitting there on the bench, spitting see how far you can spit a sunflower seed next to the guy beside you. You're not really getting ready. Coach is turning around and looking for somebody, and he sees you and he'd really like to have you hit, but it's like, he's not ready. He's not really ready. He's not into the game. But there's another guy down there, he's had his imaginary bat in his hand, or he's just holding his actual bat in his hand for every pitch, and he's kind of getting timed up and everything. If I see a guy like that, I'm looking for a pinch hitter, that's the guy I'm choosing.
Yeah.
And I don't care if he's right-handed, left-handed. I don't care if he's a good hitter or a bad hitter. The guy that's ready is who's getting chosen. And he's looking for his opportunity. So it's not going to pass him by.
Yep.
It passed the other guy by because he never even expected it. He wasn't looking for it. Mm-hmm. The second reason, sorry, you were getting ready to say something.
Well, I was going to say, hopefully all of our players are doing that, right? So they make it more difficult on us to choose which one's ready. And again, I would say,
love to have that. Have that problem as a coach.
Right.
Which one of you guys is the most ready, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Because you're all ready.
And if you look over into your dugout at a situation like this and you see most of your players not ready, you can visually see that. That might be a reflection on where you're at. That's
my problem as a coach.
Right.
Yeah.
So get that notebook out and write it down, right?
Right.
Start being ready.
Right.
What's the second?
Well, the second one is if you're not ready for them, then you're going to fumble the opportunity.
Yeah.
Right.
Absolutely.
You might be looking for the opportunity. It's one thing to look for it and say, yeah, I've had kids tell me, Coach, I want to hit. I want to be that pinch hitter. Okay, cool. He's looking for it. Get in there and get ready to, you're up. Gets in the box, acts like he's never seen this pitcher before in his life. Right?
Yep.
He was looking for the opportunity, got the opportunity, so he stepped up. But if you're not ready for it, then you fumble the opportunity. You screw it up. And when that happens, you might not get another one.
Yeah.
Right?
And I think that's what happens a lot of times in the field. That's when we see mistakes in the field, it's because of that, what we're talking about, because we're not ready to do what we need to do. For whatever reason, we get, we get in a lull, we're zoned out, we're not paying attention.
And you're talking a lot there too, not about the error that comes to every player. He gets a bad hop or just makes a physical error. But sometimes we don't know where to throw. Think of an outfielder who has a runner on third base, gets a shallow fly ball. Runners on first and third, for example, gets a shallow fly ball hit to him in right field, and he catches it, hits the cutoff man to second base.
Yeah.
And the guy tags from third and runs home.
Right.
What's going on there?
Yep.
You were not prepared. You weren't ready for that ball to be hit to you to know where to go after it was hit.
That thought process of,
so it's not always just the physical error that happens. It's there's a lot of things.
Well, I think that
are symptoms of you not being ready.
For sure. It's when you're not ready, it's affecting your mind for sure. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And a lot of guys, feel comfortable just going, by the seat of their pants and trusting their physical abilities, trusting their talent. And that's when they get in trouble.
It is,
and honestly, as coaches, we allow them to do that. We do it. We allow it. We enable them to do that because we don't push them to be ready, to think about the scenarios, to think about what they might have to do. and things like that. So it's a two-way street, but ultimately we're talking about the value of it.
Yeah,
and it's important.
It is vitally important,
especially in the game of baseball, because that's I think it's the one difference. Basketball is an up and down. You're running up and down the. You can make one play and then immediately after that you're ready to make another play. Baseball's really not like that.
Right.
Football's a little bit like that, where you have you run up. There's a lot of action every 45 seconds, but still, yet baseball is a series of individual plays that take. There's quite a bit of time in between or sometimes there's not
in between. Sure,
right? Maybe sometimes it's back-to-back pitches. Right. So you have to be ready every pitch and you may not need to act, which we know we need to act on every ball that's put in play, but you may not need to make a play, I guess I would say, on for quite a while. Softball is different. I think softball, there's more action.
Be directly involved in the play.
Yeah, to be directly involved in the play. Yeah. But I think a lot of times we can compare baseball and softball, but I think that's why the game of softball is condensed. Everything happens in
it's a faster paced game.
It's a faster paced game. That's why all of our umpires want to umpire softball games instead of baseball games.
A lot of that has to do with just wanting to get home earlier.
Yeah, for sure.
So yeah, you don't have to get ready if you stay ready, really.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of the key here. So you've alluded to a lot of things that are, and I wrote down some principles because I think it's good. When we talk about something that's theoretic like this, like theory based, hey, we just need to be ready, right? I think it's important for us to take time in our podcast to get practical with people as well. For example, if a coach is listening, or if a player is listening, or a parent is listening, and they want to help their kids be ready, to have this mindset to actually make sure that this is who you are, because you just never know what your role is going to be and when your opportunities are going to come. So how can I do this? How can I get practical? What are some principles that we can implement right now?
Good idea. Yeah.
All right.
Let's talk about it.
Good deal. Now, I will say this. I get a lot of my principles for this kind of stuff from Navy SEALs.
Oh, nice.
I love reading Navy. Yeah.
I was thinking Brian Cain.
He could be a Navy SEAL.
Well,
he might not say that, but not very many people could. It takes a cleaner, I think.
Yeah.
To have a cleaner mindset.
It's a grueling.
Yeah. But I love reading books and articles, and just they're so motivating, and from people who have been SEALs, who've been through SEAL training. I remember reading one article from a guy that went through SEAL training but failed. I mean, wasn't chosen.
Oh, really?
And he talked about that experience. Yeah.
Gotcha.
Yeah. But there are some principles.
But most people don't make it through. They don't have to choose them, right?
Oh, exactly.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. You quit. You decide to quit yourself.
Right.
And that's sort of that's part of the SEAL training, is they weed them out in that way. Some people coach like that, and I don't like that. I don't think that applies well to.
You mean
high
from
school,
a conditioning,
high school coaching? Yeah, let kids cut themselves. Let's run the crap out of them so that they cut themselves. I don't like that mentality. We're not training SEALs. We're not.
You're using that time where you could be developing.
Yeah.
It's tough. I know a lot of coaches that do that as well.
Yeah, and I think what, man up and cut them yourself. If a kid shouldn't be on your team, then you need to man up and cut them yourself. Don't run somebody to death, because then you're going to lose kids that you don't want to lose. To be quite honest.
Yeah.
You run the risk of losing kids you don't want to lose.
Yeah, I've got a Navy SEAL quote.
Okay.
Most people that train to be a Navy SEAL fail because they're wondering how they're going to make it through training. And the ones that succeed are only concerned about how they're going to make it through the day.
So they stay in that moment.
Yes.
They're not looking ahead to the 6 weeks or however long it takes.
They're ready for the next moment, as opposed to thinking about, oh man, how am I gonna get through this? They're prepared for the next moment.
Yeah. So here's some principles.
Okay.
Principle number 1. These are principles for staying ready, being ready. And I think the first principle is this. It's physical readiness. It all starts with being physically ready. And that's why, so much emphasis on the SEAL training is physical calisthenics, physical exercises, things like that.
Right.
But here's the truth. I mean, and this is, we're talking about athletes here. If you do not have, or if you don't build, because you don't just have it, you got to build it.
Sure. Well,
some people are born with a strong physique. Yeah, that's true. God gives you that sometimes.
I would say at some point though it levels out.
Yeah, without any doubt it levels out. But you got to have a strong physical foundation.
Sure.
If you don't, you're not going to be ready. Or you're not going to be as ready as you can be.
Yep.
I'll say this.
Uh-oh. You got that button ready?
Yeah, here we go. Parents, don't pay for hitting lessons for your kid.
Whoa.
If your kid can't hit the ball to the outfield.
Yeah.
Right?
Yep. We're talking about the bucket, right? Not the water.
Yes.
So how big of a bucket can you have to put water in? If you only have a very small pail, it doesn't matter how, it doesn't matter. You just can't put a lot of water in that.
You got to build. Yeah, you got to build that bigger bucket
from a physical perspective. What can you do with the skills that you have?
Yeah, I mean, I see a lot of kids that are getting lessons and they can barely swing the bat. I mean, they're weak. They're physically weak.
Sure.
And they might have a pretty swing at the other side of that, but they're going to hit some pretty ground balls.
Yeah.
Or some weak line drives that are going to be caught. And that's not just a baseball, it's in everything. I mean, here, I think this is a really good example, actually, a volleyball player. And my daughter played volleyball, and I knew a little bit about it. I'm not a huge volleyball guy. I love the game. I love watching it. I don't know how to coach it, I should say.
Yeah.
But I think this is true, though. This principle would definitely be true for a volleyball player. I said hitting lessons. Volleyball players pay for hitting lessons, too.
Right.
Sometimes, you'd be an outside hitter. Parents, why are you paying for hitting lessons for your daughter if she can't jump above the net?
Right.
Let's get her. I mean, jumping is a basic athletic skill that needs to be developed before you try to give them the technique of learning how to hit.
And by the way, if you have an athlete that can jump really high and that is really strong and really fast, I can probably teach them how to hit a volleyball.
You're right. Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
That's true. And folks, Pat is not a volleyball coach.
Right.
I don't know. That might be one of the sports you've...
I do. I'm
what
like
sports have you not coached? Is volleyball one of them?
Was it...
You've been in
cricket?
Track? You've done baseball, basketball?
I've never
You've done football?
You
ever done
football? Yeah, I'm just a dumb fan. And, that's why the Cleveland
You coach
Browns.
football every Sunday afternoon.
Yes, exactly.
With your Martin jersey on.
Our team coming, Yeah. No, I do like volleyball, but I don't know much about the technique. So
yeah. You guys that listen to us, you've heard us say this all the time. I mean, it's not we don't mean to belabor the point, but it's absolutely essential. Athletes that are the most ready are the ones who are the strongest.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just it. Why am I so adamant about getting my kids in the weight room every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday? And I'm constantly putting messages out there, one, to encourage the ones that have been coming regularly, but also to nudge the ones that haven't been coming and saying, listen, you are going to be more ready for our season if you get physically stronger.
Yep.
And those who are getting a lot stronger are going to be a lot more ready. Those who just get a little bit stronger are going to be a little bit ready. You're going to be more ready if you have greater physical foundation.
In a couple different ways, really. The margin of error shrinks.
Yeah.
But also the confidence.
Yeah. And that's actually another principle. That's another point that's coming here later. But there's a reason why that one is number one, is first. And I kind of think that these principles are hierarchical in nature in terms of the importance, that I really think you need to get yourself. You got to get strong. If you want to be an athlete, the stronger ones are going to be the ones that are going to be the most ready to play the game, whatever game it is. Run, cross country. I don't care what it is. There's a kid out at Eastern that went to the state cross country. He actually placed 10th in the state of Ohio.
Yeah.
In Division IV.
Yep.
You know what I saw in the weight room? Chart with his name on it. What he squats, bench presses, deadlifts.
Nice.
Been lifting all season.
Good for him.
Cross country runners lift. You bet they do.
It's the
I mean,
squats make you faster. What?
Right.
Make you faster.
Oh, but you don't want to gain weight though. You gain weight, you're going to get slower. Nope, that's a misnomer.
Yeah.
You get faster.
You get faster.
You get stronger. You get faster.
That's why football is such a dangerous sport now, folks.
It is extremely dangerous.
That's why everyone's trying to design a helmet,
right,
to counteract all these.
We wonder why the targeting penalties and things like that are so huge today.
Yeah.
We are bigger and stronger and faster today.
Absolutely. Weapons.
And I know old school guys look at the old videos and they say, "Oh, but look at how Jack Ham would just clothesline people."
Yeah.
Well, yeah, it's not saying that they weren't more brutal back then, and there weren't some guys that were big and strong and anomaly athletes. But look at pictures of Chris Collinsworth when he was a wide receiver for the.
Well, just compare the offensive line.
Sorry, Chris, I really like you.
The offensive line. I mean, the whole game's different. You can't deny it.
You cannot compare it to what the game it used to be. Mm-hmm. I know Terry Bradshaw took some bad hits. Have you ever seen some of the clips of him get just absolutely pounded?
I actually celebrate those hits.
Well, yeah, I couldn't stand Terry Bradshaw.
I'm just a Browns fan.
Well, I was a Cowboys fan. That's who they go against in the Super Bowls every other year back then. So shoot. Principle number 1, physical readiness. You got anything more you want to wrap that up?
No, we're good. I agree with that.
Principle number 2, and I think this comes, it's a building block. You will do this better the more physicality you've got, and that is tactical readiness. I should not tactical. I'm sorry, I skipped 1. That's 3. So now you know what 3 is.
Okay.
2 is technique.
Technical, yes.
Technique readiness.
Gotcha.
So this is where you get your hitting lessons, right? Yeah. This is when you go. So, and I think you can be properly developed after physical readiness has been developed. I think you could more properly develop a technique or a mechanic when you're stronger. Listen, this is why the Driveline program is so popular. One of the reasons the Driveline program is so popular with baseball pitchers is because people tend to think it's just a weighted ball, like you just go out there, it's just a pitching technique program. It's not. It's a physical strength program.
That's a good point.
They got them lifting like crazy in that program.
Yeah.
And people don't realize that. You don't just have a bunch of little skinny small kids out there throwing weighted balls. Don't do that. That's dangerous. They're getting stronger. So you get stronger now. Okay. Now we're going to teach you how the technique that you need to be able to be the best you can be in this particular skill.
Yep. I think college this is kind of spoken to with college coaches, or even MLB teams. When they're looking at a kid, when they're looking at a prospect, they're looking at their physical abilities and not really what they're able to do now, because they feel like, okay, if I'm looking at this physical specimen, I can make them pitch the way that I want to.
Yeah.
But if I don't have those physical traits that I'm looking for, it's going to be more difficult.
Man, that's a good point.
Yeah.
They have a word for it. They call it projectability.
Yeah.
They see a player who doesn't necessarily do it the way they want him to do it.
Doesn't matter.
He's projectable. Yeah. He's strong enough to do it, and I can teach him how to do it.
Right. And that's what, when we talk about having elite things, elite speed, elite strength, whatever it is, they're looking for those elite qualities that, so when they see that, they're like, yeah, we can use this kid. We can.
So what does that say then to your high school player who's listening right now, or to my high school? It's saying back up, right? Back up. If you're so focused right now on technique, nothing wrong with that. There comes a time for that, but back up.
No, and I would say
get more athletic.
Absolutely, continue to work
do
on
that
technique,
but make sure that you put a priority on number one
Yes.
principle, physical readiness.
And I would say that's true with parents too. And find me a study that says that youth strength training is bad, and it's strength training, not Olympic weightlifting, right?
Sure.
Strength training is bad. It's just not out there. Strength training is good. As a matter of fact, one of the problems that we have right now is that our kids aren't strength training enough. And when I say strength training, I mean they're not outside running, jumping, climbing, crawling, doing those things.
They're not throwing rocks as hard as they can, and mud pies and things like that as hard as they can, mud balls.
So we need that really more than ever right now for our youth athletes, and we need to make it a priority. And
we do.
I don't think it's ever too early to start that. And just going back to that, you don't have to pick up a barbell to strength train, but
no, you don't.
I mean, eventually you're going to build up to that. It's just, it's simple science, I think.
It is simple science. Number 3.
Yeah, good. So tactical.
Tactical is number 3. Tactical readiness, which we're talking strategy now. Strategy. There are a lot of well-intentioned athletes who are getting stronger, and they're improving their skills without any thought to how it's going to play out in the game.
They get up to the plate and have no plan.
Yes.
Yeah.
What this tells me is, so tactical readiness, strategic readiness tells us this. This is the lesson, I think, in this. Lots of reps isn't enough. Just because you look good, I mean, you've got a perfect swing. Well, I'll go back to baseball. We'll go to a defensive analogy. Field 100 ground balls, and you look great fielding those 100 ground balls, throwing them over to first base. What happens when you're in a game and you get a ground ball and you got a guy that can run to first base in less than 4 seconds?
Ooh, very good. Or I would say
you got to get it over there. You're not used to that.
Right.
You didn't implement the strategic aspect of it, right?
You don't practice it, right? But what if you field 100 ground balls and the first 3 you look horrible on, and then the next 97 you look great on? You're probably only going to get 3 to 7 in a game, right?
Yeah, 7 would be a lot.
So what do you need?
Even for a shortstop.
That's one thing that I really appreciate about you, Coach, from your coaching is when you do batting practice. A lot of times you limit the number of swings that a batter takes, in a setting. So they might swing 8 times, they might swing 5 times, they might swing 3 times, and then they're rotating out of there. I think that mimics the feel and the tension and the pressure of getting up into a game situation. And I think that's what you're talking about here. It's reps,
right?
But it's not a quantity of reps. Yes, reps matter, right? You want to do that a lot, but you also want to make sure.
And there's a time and place for that.
Yes.
And honestly, players individually need to be doing that on their own.
Yes.
Because we got 26 kids that need to hit, and so for us, it's in a team practice where we have limited facilities, right? We got a cage and then we've got a field. So we can do a little bit of both. So you can get a lot of reps out there, but when you're on here, it's going to be game-like reps.
Yeah.
And you're not going to end on a good one necessarily. You're going to end on the one that you ended on.
Man, I think it's so important to not, because I've done that a lot. End on a good one, end on a good one. You throw like 8, 9, 10 more pitches. I think it's important to sometimes end on a bad one.
This is it. Yeah, this is your last. I mean, if you hit a foul, we let kids, if you foul a ball off, I mean, just like in a game, you foul a ball off, what? You get another chance, right? So if they hit a foul, okay, that doesn't count against their 6 fair balls or whatever. But when you've hit 5 fair balls and that 6th one, you chop it 3 feet in front of the plate, you don't get another one.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what you ended on.
Yep.
And in a game, you might have to sprint your butt to first base because that's the swing that you took.
Yep.
And that's what happened. So I think, understanding how your reps and your technique and the things that you're learning, the things that you're getting stronger for and the things that you're getting better at, more skilled at, how those actually play out in game situations strategically and practicing it that way as well. This is why live bullpens for pitchers, I think, is so valuable, and live at bats for hitters is so valuable. And doing, you can kill 2 birds with 1 stone there. Have your pitchers throw to hitters live,
yeah,
and give them those, because that's what it's going to be more like in a game. There are some guys who are cage rats and they look really great in batting practice because they know what's coming and it's coming at 35 miles an hour all the time.
Yes.
Right.
Right.
So
for sure. And I think this tactical awareness that we're talking about is something that separates kids as they get older, because a lot of times you'll have real good teams because they're physically advanced, or from a skill perspective they're advanced, and they're just beating everybody, regardless of the sport that you're playing. But there's a certain point that it shifts, and you got to know how to play the game.
Yeah.
As opposed to just being the best athlete on the floor. You got to understand, you got to have that IQ. That's where and you see that. You see teams rise to their level of physical and skill competence, I would say. And then it starts to plateau or drop down the other end.
That's a great point. We see that a lot. I think we see it a lot around here in our area of the state.
Yeah.
I see it in high school teams who, not too long ago, these same exact kids were in junior high and they were dominating everybody. And a lot of that's because people grow differently, and some people peak early and things like that. But there are some programs, I think, some schools who on a regular basis, you'll see them hoisting youth league trophies and and middle school trophies, and you never see them go anywhere in high school.
Yep.
Same kids.
Yep.
Same kids. And I think that speaks to what you're saying. They
Definitely.
were dominating with just either the raw physicality or just the fact that they were naturally better than everybody.
Right.
But this tactical aspect comes into play the higher level, as you move up the higher levels of the game.
Yep.
Whatever game it is,
Matters.
whatever sport it is. No doubt. So this one's number 4 then. We're moving on to number 4. And this is similar, but it's not the same as tactical. And that is number 4 principle for how to be ready. And that is theoretical readiness. So it's understanding the game, understanding it. So this is a knowledge aspect. This isn't we're not at the mental readiness yet, which that's number 5. But so this is there's a difference here. To an athlete, I would say this: ask questions to your coach. If you don't fully understand why you're doing something, ask, learn, have a desire to learn as much as you possibly can. Now that's only half of the equation, because we got to speak to coaches here too. And we got to say, hey, coaches, explain why to your athletes.
Yep.
Because I said so is not a good answer.
Oh, boy. Yeah, me and Jake had it out in practice the other night.
Oh, did I just convict you there?
No, you didn't.
Okay.
I was right.
Okay.
Yeah. I kept getting on to him about something. And,
it wasn't a because I said so moment. It was a,
no,
here's why you need to do it. Okay.
But, well, we won't get into it. So we're practicing, it's basically a warm-up drill. It's a layup passing drill.
And so that people know you're one of his coaches on his team.
Yes.
Yeah, you're coaching JV basketball,
right?
And Jake is on that team. It wasn't just you out in the driveway with.
Oh,
Jake.
right. Yeah, we're in JV basketball practice, and I'm telling these guys, don't step out of bounds. Don't step out of bounds. And I told Jake, don't step out of bounds, and he looked behind and said, why? And I said, because we don't want to practice stepping out of bounds. When do we want to step out of bounds during a basketball game? Actually, there is sometimes you want to.
So he was just doing it as a drill. Like you were doing drills, and he had no awareness of where the sideline was or the baseline was.
Yes.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And it was not just him, but he's the one that spoke up and said why, because
I'm his dad and saying it. Yeah. How much did he run after that?
He didn't run. Okay. He didn't run. No, he stopped stepping out of bounds.
Yeah. Well,
so that's good.
He wanted to know why.
I mean, it was a fair question.
Yeah.
I may have.
Why is it important for this drill? Right. Doesn't matter. It's not going to be a turnover here, Dad. Yeah. Coach, Dad. Right.
But that question of why, I've noticed, has come a lot more often in teenage years. I don't know if you're familiar.
Just for teenagers in general? Yeah, that's true. But I think the question why has come a lot more often among athletes, youth athletes, high school athletes in recent years, because they just simply don't know the answer to it. They don't understand why.
Yeah, major.
And a lot of the things that they're doing in the game. And I don't think, and I'm not saying that to their fault. I'm actually saying it to our fault as coaches, as adults, as parents, as well as youth coaches. You know, all of us who have coached youth sports, what do we often do? We coach the understanding readiness out of kids because we make all their decisions for them.
Yeah. That's good stuff.
They're not
Coach.
ready.
You're right.
They're not theoretically ready. They're not understanding why they should do what they should do because they've never had to think about it.
Yep.
We tell them everything they should do.
That's a good point. That's a good point. It's a really good point. And you know, even though I know that I try to give some responsibility and some opportunity to my athletes to make decisions, I still find myself, joysticking them. I still find myself trying to control them.
Right. It's easier to just do it yourself, right?
Yeah.
It's easier to just do what I say because I understand why you need to do it, and I don't have time to explain it to you.
Right.
I mean, I get that as a coach. I get that.
Sure.
But it's just we can't.
That's a failure on our part.
It is.
We didn't. Yeah. Because you know what we want to do? We really want to. We're building leaders. We're building we're building coaches.
Yeah. For, the next generation of coaches.
Yeah, exactly. So for our kids to be able to understand, how to coach this game, they need to know why we're doing what we're doing a lot of times. And
yeah. They don't always just need to do what we tell them that it's not about. It's more about teaching them how to think than what to think.
Yes.
Or how versus what.
Sure.
I think.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Yeah. I mean, knowledge is dangerous. Athletes can be dangerous the more they know and understand. And I really see this on the baseball field. I'm telling you, you got a catcher who understands the game more than you do as a coach. That's a daggone good catcher. That's a dangerous player.
That's Joe Burrow.
He understands the game more than any coach he's probably had.
When he goes under center, he had a huge advantage when he looked across on the other side of the field at the defense because his dad was the defense coordinator.
No, yeah, he knew exactly what. And as a high school player,
yes,
to know exactly, to be able to anticipate exactly what's going to happen based on what he sees.
Yeah, but I would say the aspect there is he not only did he know because his dad taught him, but he knew how to learn and he knew how to evaluate. Right, he knew how to think.
Oh, make no mistake, his dad was often on the road. He knew he knew how to study film on his own.
Exactly.
He didn't. It wasn't just dad telling him what to look for. It was how to look for this, and then how to build on that skill and that understanding, that knowledge. I think one of the biggest components of this understanding aspect, the knowledge, and why it's dangerous, why it can be dangerous for kids. When I say dangerous, I'm using that in a positive way. It's a good kind of dangerous. You could be an impactful player when you understand more about the game that you're playing in. And I think that one of the biggest aspects of this point is the lesson of cause and effect. It becomes more clear to athletes when they understand the why behind all of their training. And I'll say it, and I'll explain it this way. In the weight room, right now it's wintertime. Well, it's not wintertime yet. It's been some mornings it's felt like wintertime. I'm training our baseball players Monday, Wednesday, Friday in the mornings. So I'm getting, I'm on the road at 5 a.m. A lot of those guys are on the road by 5:30 to get there. We start at 6 a.m. Every day that we're there, I am pointing out something to them that's going to happen as a result of what they're doing right now. Before they leave, I'm constantly reminding them, listen, I know it was dark when you got up this morning and drove here or had your parents bring you here. I know it's freezing cold. I know they haven't turned the heat on in this weight room yet, and it takes us a while to get warmed up. That's a side point.
Some people like that.
Yeah, some people do like that, yeah. But no, anyway, they got to know, right? It makes that mundaneness of what you're doing now when you don't see an effect. You don't see the effect, but when they understand that this cause is going to have an effect. So we're doing this. This work is the cause. This training is the cause. And I want you to make a connection, and it's often a future connection, a way off in the future sometimes connection for the kids that have big goals, right? I want to play in college. I want to be a pro, whatever. I mean, it's way off. But you have to understand why you need to do this now.
Yep.
Because there's not going to be that effect if you don't do this now.
Right.
So this relationship between cause and effect, I think, becomes more clear the more they know that why. And so that's why I'm telling them, listen, not only are you getting stronger, and so it's just going to make natural sense, scientific sense, physiological sense that you're going to hit the ball harder, you're also going to be more confident. You're stronger mentally when you stand in that box and you know that you're stronger than that pitcher that's out there throwing. You know that you're stronger than him. Why? Because you outworked him this offseason. There's a huge difference in that kind of readiness. I mean, that kind of readiness right there. That is understanding the why for what we're doing. That's the making that connection.
Yeah. Have you ever seen a 10U baseball player get up and, hit a ball over a fence on a kid?
So your 10U player do that.
On a kid that's smaller than him?
Yes.
And then when a kid that's real tall or, physically bigger than that kid, they're a completely different hitter.
Oh, yeah.
They're scared.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But
yeah.
the bigger kid may even throw easier, may not have the same velocity that the smaller kid did, but it doesn't matter. It's
just that it's what you think.
It's all about what you see.
Well, yeah,
and that's it. I think that happens all the time.
It does.
So that's something that is it always happens. It just is, and that's why. That's kind of what you're alluding to there.
It's always going through your mind, right? Right. You might have a kid out on the mound that's pretty skilled. Throws the ball pretty decent.
Yeah,
but he's tiny, skinny.
Yep.
He doesn't look healthy, right? You're going to beat that kid.
Yeah, and
he might have a lot better stuff than the big dude that they're going to bring in relief, but you're more intimidated by the big dude. There's a lot of this mental stuff.
And I've seen that make all the difference in the world. Going up to the plate, knowing you're going to hit the ball.
Yeah.
Makes a huge difference.
Yeah. And you're gaining that. You're gaining more of that
naturally
in the weight room.
Yeah.
In November.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah, that's the connection.
Yep, that's good stuff.
So 58 minutes here on the podcast. So let's go to principle number 5, which I've already said what it is: mental readiness. And you said this early in the podcast today that this is a big part of being ready, right? Is having mental readiness, and then I think if we're getting practical with it, then people are probably wondering, well, how do you train it? And you can train it.
Sure.
But I'll say this too. I think this is a true statement. If athletes are properly prepared in the other 4 aspects that we mentioned, I mean, because we kind of made this point just a second ago when we talked about the cause and effect relationship between getting stronger and standing in a batter's box. If you're properly prepared, even in that first one, it's going to make you more mentally prepared. But think about it. If you have physical readiness and technical readiness and tactical readiness and you understand the game and why we're doing what we're doing, so theoretical readiness, how in the world are you not mentally ready? You're going to be.
Yeah, right.
So you don't have to train that if you train these other things.
Yeah. It's nice. There's the blueprint.
That was a little bit of an epiphany for me this morning, actually. I want to train the mental game.
How do you
I
do it?
do. I want to be proactive in that and intentional in that. But truth is, if I get them ready in these other 4 aspects, that is developing them mentally as well.
Yeah.
And on the flip, go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say, you just think about those 4 principles that lead to the mental readiness. Coaches out there, think about your practice plans.
Yeah.
And where do those 4 things, fit on your practice plan? Where do those 4 things fit in your program development?
Yeah.
They need to be there. I would say nobody listening that coaches or are going to disagree that those things aren't valuable. We think they're immensely valuable. But even if you don't think that they're as valuable as we do, no one's going to say, "Wow, that you don't need that." You don't need to be physically fit to play. Play baseball. Everyone uses the example of John Kruk. Remember John Kruk? Yeah. You don't have to be an athlete to play baseball. Let me tell you, he had elite strength.
He did.
Guy was strong.
Yeah.
And you know what? Oddly enough, baseball is not a game where you have to run 60 yards at a time. Oh, we're not going to talk about that.
Jeez. Yeah, you might. A double is 60 yards.
Yeah, right. Yeah, you're right. At an angle.
You make a right angle
around it,
and then you run straight.
Actually,
for 30.
You want to round it, right? You want to run a circle.
Oh yeah, it's not a right angle. Yes, right. It's definitely a circle. It's a half circle. So yeah, on the flip side of being of this whole idea of mental readiness is this: if an athlete's mental competency is diminished, like if
oh yes,
well, I'll say it this way: it will always be. If all those other four things is what produces mental toughness or mental readiness, then here's the truth. Mental capacity is going to be significantly diminished if an athlete tries to take shortcuts in those other four things.
That's true.
If you want a shortcut to success, or you don't train systematically in those other four aspects of the game that you love, you will not be mentally ready.
Right.
It doesn't matter how much we try to train you to be mentally ready. You're just not going to be.
Yep. You got to hit those small steps, right?
Yeah.
You can't jump. You can't jump steps or small ladder rungs.
Yes.
I remember your picture the other day that you shared.
Posted that picture, right? Yeah, I mean, there's a little picture of a guy of two ladders. One has small rungs, 100 of them going up to the clouds, and the one on the right has fewer rungs, so you can actually get there. You think you can get there quicker, right?
And it's funny because if you take those two guys off those ladders, the two drawings of those guys, you would think, oh, that ladder's quicker. I think you would think that, like, visually, that ladder's quicker
because you don't have as many steps,
right?
But you can't reach the first one.
You can't reach the first one, yeah. If you did, you take your time climbing the side.
Good luck trying to get to the second one. Good luck, yeah. And you're wearing yourself out, or you're more sore every time. Why are sometimes guys sore every time they come into the weight room and then they stop, and they come in once a week, right? They're sore. Well, because you're not doing it frequently.
Yep.
You got to come in every day. You got to do it consistently, and that soreness will go away. It'll fluctuate, right? It ebbs and flows depending on the gains that your body's making with you. So yeah, a lot of that is focused on the athlete, the child, the player. But I'll say this, coaches, this principle, the mental readiness principle, is accomplished when we as coaches understand how to coach. And what I mean by that is we got to be athlete-centered as opposed to sport-centered. If all you are is sport-centered, if you're coaching a sport, your athletes are probably not going to be mentally ready to play the game the way they need to play it. Yeah. A coach's job is to teach athletes and to teach them specifically how to compete in the sport that they're playing.
Or any sport. Or
to just, I should say, put a period after compete. How to compete.
Yeah, in the moment.
Yeah, in that moment. Because as they get that, then you start principle number 2. You give them some technique, right? You give them strategy. You give them, and it all just builds on one another, right? But we've got to be athlete first people. That's our primary role. That's our main priority, is to help the athlete be ready. Yeah.
Crickets. I told you
they
to
are.
Use that.
Yeah. So use the cricket button.
Yeah. We have to be intentional about this stuff.
Yes.
It's required for success, and as coaches, as players, we have to, if we want to be successful.
Yeah. I don't think you realize how important that word is, Pat. I mean, you said we had to be intentional about this stuff. It just kind of flows right off the tongue, and everybody's like, oh, yeah, I just agreed. Yeah, that's right. But, the truth is, it's so easy to say, hey, be ready, right?
Absolutely.
And you got a kid that looks at you and gives you the thumbs up. I'm ready, coach.
Or says why.
Well, yeah. Yeah. But I mean, it's so that word, that phrase, that, hey, be ready to go. All right. You ready to go today? Ready to go? I mean, I said it last night. I showed up to the OU football chapel and these guys are walking in. I'm fist bumping them, ready to go. I mean, it rolls off of our tongues, right? And I know they know specifically what it means, when they answer the question, yeah, we ready, right? We're ready.
Yeah.
What they've done to prepare for it. But you said we've got to be intentional. How? Well, go back and listen to this podcast.
Absolutely,
again.
right.
That's how you can be intentional.
Yeah, and schedule time to cover it. Schedule time to develop it. That's what you got to do, for sure.
Yeah, there's the title and show notes for this episode right there, right? How to be ready.
How to be ready.
How to be ready. Be ready. How do you do it? Rewind and listen to this podcast again.
Works for me.
That's right.
Good discussion.
Yes.
Good seeing you, Coach.
Good to see you.